Well, hello everyone, and welcome to day 4 of the 1 to 50 challenge. Thank you for being with me on this journey. It's an exciting day today. We've got a lot more still to cover, even though we've already covered quite a lot of ground in the first 3 days. Now familiar roadmap, and well, we're not yet. I better share my screen. Now we are. Okay, and we find ourselves down here, day 4. Where we reveal some stunningly powerful ways to massively multiply your brand using the work we've already done, and now supplementing it and complementing it with back into the space where I've been for the last 10 years, the authority marketing, authority publishing space. So I think you're going to find this very valuable as we proceed to the final day of our formal curriculum. And then just remembering we have a couple of bonus days coming up, and I've decided to add these as well. There's some additional content I think that could be quite helpful, and I'll be following up. And so it's important to registered for this workshop series, because that's how I will be communicating updates and additional resources I'll be making available beyond what's already been discussed here. Including additional sessions, but I'm also thinking of passing on a number of tools and complementary resources that you may find helpful. And the only way I can really communicate with you is if you have registered for this series rather than just found your way to a replay on one of the properties that I'm saving the replays on. Now, just talking about replays, I have edited the replays because about how much more I can do to help content creators, and particularly conscious content creators, as I've mentioned a couple of times. I've decided to boost the prizes available in the referral rewards program. We've touched on this a few times, and so what I've now done is, because I've significantly enhanced the value of the prize package, both the main prize and I've also consolation prizes, if you would have probably already seen an additional component I'm adding to the front of this, and I do the same for this one as well, where I go through this in some detail and discuss the referral rewards program and these additional now, even since I did that edition, which I've added to the other replays, I've thought about how to boost the even further. So I'll touch on that today. That was the surprise I alluded to yesterday on day 3. And I was just thinking about it, and I've locked it in. So as we go through today's content, you'll see it was already a valuable prize. I boosted it with a second component that wasn't in my original thinking, because it is so valuable, and it's actually quite expensive for me to secure these items. But I thought, well, if I'm really going to help people, then I can bring in the big guns, so to speak, in terms of the authority publishing side of things. So you'll see what I mean in a moment. So I added a second component, and overnight I've made the decision to add a third component, and I'll cover all of those 3 components today. So you'll see what's in as the main prize for the referral rewards, and all you need to do to participate in that is, of course, follow the steps that I've outlined previously. The final thing I just wanted to mention on the replays before I get into the content specifically is I'm saving those replays in a number of locations. For example, I'm putting them back on the 1 to 50 challenge site. So the first 3 days are already loaded here, the edited versions of those where I talk against prizes on offer. I'm adding them to, well, they're being automatically loaded to the YouTube channel, to the Facebook page. But there are 2 primary locations I suggest that you use to access the replays if you're not doing it ready to look at this session right now. One is the main website, absolutemedia.co, and under the 1 to 50 challenge area, this is where I'm using a searchy player. and there's the playlist for each of the sessions. So this session will be uploaded into this playlist, and that comes with the additional benefits that I've discussed on days 1 and 2 that Searchy provides, which is just that, the ability to search. So there's a few hours of content here. You'll be able to go back if you're trying to remember, when did Brian say that? When did he talk about that? You can use the keyword function simply up here. For example, when I talked about strategy at some point, you'll be able to find that very quickly and go straight to that segment on whichever, and you'll be taken to a page of the sessions it was that I may have mentioned each of that keyword each time. So Searchy does provide this additional enormous value, and of course you'll also be able to download transcriptions and all. That's why I'm so strong. I actually had a meeting today with the lead engineer at Searchy for some time, just talking about what they've got coming down the track, and it's already an exciting product, a revolutionary product, I believe, and they're working on a number of huge enhancements for it right now. So it's an exciting thing to be able to use that here, and there is a second place that I think you'll find also particularly valuable, and that's within the strategy maps themselves. So, for example, if we go over to day 1 and day 2, where we talked about Searchy in particular, I've got the full replay, the edited replay, now available right on the strategy map. So when you get the strategy map with your complimentary user account, the $500 value user account, you'll be able to watch each of the replays right there, right on the strategy map that it's relevant to. Similarly, day 2, and also there's a Searchy introduction there. If we have a look at day 3, so I've already uploaded the replay for day 3's, and the same thing. So there you have the primary locations for the replays are going to be on the strategy map, so you don't even have to go to. However, if you do make that little bit of extra effort, you'll get all the benefits of Searchy on my main website. So they're the 2 primary locations I suggest. Process not just these session replays for the workshop series. We've got the bonus sessions coming up, and then there will be sessions beyond that as well. And particularly if you have feedback or requests, I'm very happy to take those so I can customize the content according to what people want to hear. And I'll be able to add those into the mix and create additional strategy maps even, and push them down to your user account as we go forward from here. Okay, so that's all the introductory remarks. And now I wanted to move on to day 4. Let's see what we have. Oh, it doesn't look much, does it? Okay, I'm not going to go quite as long as I have in previous sessions. I'm going to be talking about authority marketing and this whole issue of brand. And I want to basically introduce you to the 3 elements that I touched on before that are now part of the main prize and the referral reward. And I'd like to just let you know that these options exist, if you're not aware already, for taking a single message, whether it's a podcast episode, and these are ways that we can give them significant voltage, just really up the ante in terms of the authority that message then carries as it goes out into a very busy marketplace. And by way of introduction, I'll just revisit this slide here that I've mentioned a couple of times. This was the promotion I was looking at running after quite a long preparation time, even though I've been in this space for some years. It took a while just to get my head around, okay, how are we going to package all this? And then back in February, it was ready to release to the market, along with, in fact, the commercial launch of the strategy mapping platform. And of course, COVID came along, and I decided that it wasn't the right time to be doing a 6-week promotion. And I also deferred the launch of the StratMapper. And I mentioned, I think it was yesterday, that I'm not going to release StratMapper commercially. I'm going to make that available to participants in this series. And all of these components in this authority marketing group of services, I've got a few dozen of these kinds of premium services, and I pull them together, 20 of them into this prize package. I'm reserving these now for my content repurposing private clients rather than promote them separately. So everything's focused around content repurposing, and that's why I the prize for the referral awards. And I thought, well, okay, there's a few extra things that we can do to make that even more valuable. So that's the of how we've come to get here. And the big strategic question that I was looking to address at the time that may still apply, and it depends on whether you're a brick and mortar business or more an online business or someone in the media and so on. The role that I have here, media strategist, and a lot of the work I do is around interviews, so that we can take an interview and repurpose that interview in so many ways on radio and a number of other facilities. So the question we're normally trying to address, though, when you distill all of that down, is how do you tell your story in a way that differentiates you and your brand from everyone else in the industry? And the way that's phrased is suited more to a business, perhaps small or medium business, but nevertheless, it's still the same essence of storytelling. And to be able to have not just ways of story, but to have that story heard, it's fairly important that we either have our own brand authority or we associate with a brand that has that authority. Otherwise, it tends to get lost. And it's very hard to get currency on the media networks if we don't have this brand association, if we're not carrying it ourselves. And it takes a while to build brand, and brand is what about us. So we can do a lot to try and get our own story out, but it needs to be corroborated and supported by sources, and that's where a lot of this work is. And to assist that process, it's one of the primary reasons we're so keen to make purposing the technical side, so to speak, be as efficient and productive and be able to multiply that, so we've got the raw material can then use and syndicate out on these networks, and to be clever in that, to be able to associate on those networks with the big brand authorities. That's where the extra juice comes from, and that's where we get the boost from Google, as well as just being redistributed, resyndicated across the broader networks to get in front of a lot more people. So in essence, that's why the content repurposing piece is so important, because it has a role to play in a much broader exercise here in the authority marketing space. And there are some key distinctions that I don't see highlighted in too many places. One, for example, is that there's a lot of talk about, particularly in the small business area, when you talk about brick and mortar businesses, a lot of talk about SEO and ranking and organic and a lot of these things. But in essence, a lot of the work that we're doing here, this may or may not apply to many of the content creators that I want to help, but a lot of this is more, all of that work around SEO and ranking, but it typically is about what you are. So you might be trying to rank, as the highest ranking chiropractor or plumber in a town, and that's okay. But what comes before that really should be who you are, that has more of a focus on you and your reputation and how you're perceived, so that if you're spending all of paid traffic or so-called free traffic, organic traffic, which isn't free at all, to bring attention to your story, to your message, to your brand, to your business, it's really unproductive and very expensive to be doing that if the who you are as a person, who you are as a business, doesn't stand scrutiny. So we need to make sure that it doesn't bring attention to it could be reviews or something that isn't congruent with all of the effort that's going into the ranking on the what you are side. If the who you are isn't supported by third parties, and to step well beyond kind of just normal reputation marketing materials, when people find you using these various methods, we want that to be supported by a whole range, like an enormous variety of positive opinions and quality content. And it takes so much effort to produce quality content that is often lost in that busyness of the marketplace. So if we can take quality content and turn it into different forms, and take one video and turn it into 5 or 10, anytime someone comes across you on any platform, you have this consistent message, this reinforcement, and then the third parties take that as an authority and start building your brand that may have been kicked off and catalyzed by being associated with the bigger brand. And you'll see what I'm hopefully a lot of what I'm saying will become clearer. But we spend a fair bit of time on the who you are marketing to make sure a lot of that personal branding, as well as the early association with the larger brands. And that then flows through into the what you are marketing where that is relevant. As I say, hopefully that'll become, we look at the specific way we do that. Making your compelling message findable online, your strategy, brand, and story. And as I mentioned before, with an interview, particularly in the brick and mortar space, but it does apply. That side of it anyway does apply to anyone online. Okay, so that's the heritage of how we came to get here. We're still talking about videos as our source document, but it doesn't matter too much from this point forward, because whatever the content piece is, we're now going to bring in at least one, if not two, if not three of these elements I'm about to show you. Now, I've just gone over to a page that sits on my resolutemedia.co site under this more area here, and it's the big three authority page just under more. Okay, and I've recently added to this page to include this multi-channel omnipresence element, this multi-channel booster. And so the way I'd like to suggest we look with these three elements is this page is representing, this total page is representing one of the additional elements. Element is actually down the bottom of this page. I created this page a couple of years ago. The elements down here in this green box apply to the first element, and this is a quality, a premium news release, not just a normal press release, but a premium news release. Now, I won't go into all the details as to why this is a cut above, because this steps well beyond normal press release syndication networks. We've got some proprietary relationships here and associations that give it this extra juice. But for the sake of simplicity, let's say we call it a press release for the moment. It's a little understated, to say the least. But if we talk about component one as our news release, our premium news release, that's the first element. What I'm going to do with the prize or prizes for the referral rewards program, I'm going to include three of these premium news releases now as an additional incentive to help me get the word out. So there'll be one main prize and three consolation prizes, each of which will be, the three consolation prizes will be a premium news release. And essentially what we're seeing here is what comes with that. It's not just the press release of things. I've tried to touch on a few of them here. I think I might, I wrote this, as I said, a couple of years ago, and I'll provide a signed and posted copy of my Amazon #1 bestseller. Do I have a copy? Yeah, that one there, Mindset. This was 2014. Still not a bad read. Anyway, that's them sitting on the shelf over there. A few lined up. All right, that was just a bit of fun. Anyway, that's the premium news release. The second element is actually this whole page. This whole page is talking about the big three authority. Now, the big three, when I created this page, and I've only just added this booster element in the last week or so. So that's the third element. Don't worry so much about the multi-channel omnipresence for the minute. That was a late addition, just in the last little while. The rest of the page is this big three, and the brief kind of additional comment I want to make about this is I'm going to have to change the graphics because my syndication partner for this has just changed the makeup of the big three. So we've still got our big three distribution that has all the additional brand authority in a second, but the makeup of it, Reuters now is wanting to do things a little bit differently. And I'm not disappointed that they've dropped syndication because they've just recently aligned with the Russian news agency TASS. Not that it's got anything to do with this. They're a great service and they've got higher. But anyway, I'm just not quite sure what they're doing there with their brand. So I wasn't unhappy to see them drop out relationship. And NASDAQ is always a little bit unpredictable. You might get them in a certain week, but you might not. We've now got Medium, which is a huge, highly trafficked website, and Morningstar, which has been in the mix for some time, and also Associated Press in the mix. So we get at least three of these big sites, and you'll see why having these big sites are so valuable. Now, it costs us a lot to secure these relationships and guarantee syndication on them. It costs me a lot even to buy them in bulk, for a number at a time. But I've got them sitting there, and I want to apply them to help particularly conscious content creators. So I've decided to bring the big guns out, and this whole page, I'll go through it briefly, is now added into the main price. So we've got a premium news release, we've got a big three distribution. It's an additional distribution on top of the normal quality distribution. And then the third element I'll explain in a second after that about this multi-channel side of things. So this is the big three side. So you could probably go through and change all the graphics, all the language now for the new distribution. I've only just heard about it in the last 24, 48 hours. So a few things on the page. So if you read Medium, Morningstar, and Yahoo Finance, it'll probably be a bit closer. Mix will be, but it's the same logic. We're trying to use the large brand authority. That's actually a Morningstar page. And the point of this, as Dan Kennedy said, it's about establishing yourself as a celebrity, and not celebrity in the Kardashian sense, but celebrity from the point of view of having the brand authority. It's so critical. A couple of quotes there from Bill Gates and Richard Branson. Experts, this page goes into it in quite a lot of detail. You'll see why I've got to change some of the graphics now with the different distribution. I'm not going to tie us up for too long going through this. And I've just added that in again recently. But it's all about authority, because these three sites rank among the most trusted, popular, and highest authority sites on the net. And there's a thing called domain authority, maximum score of 100, NASDAQ 91, Yahoo Finance 92, Reuters 94, and we've replaced them with similarly rated sites, meaning Morningstar and Associated Press and Medium. So just that mix was 250 million, and the new mix is very, very similar to that. So when you have your story syndicated on those services, it does help significantly. And of course, then we get to the supplementary benefits of Google and Google News mentions, as well as the hundreds of other sites that we have involved. And all that spelled out there. So if you'd like to have a read of that, the pricing that I had on this prior to also bringing in the third element, the multi-channel, was $2,000 for an individual Big 3 release. So it's a premium news release plus the Big 3 and some package pricing beyond that. And now we've got an additional third element, which is this multi-channel omnipresence. So we step beyond the news type authority site distribution, and we step into blogs of various kinds, audio podcast hosts and distribution, and slideshows and PDFs, as well as other video sources beyond what we may be using ourselves, and a number of other distribution sites. So that multi-channel gives everything a kick along beyond the work we may already be doing ourselves in the repurposing space. This picks it up and takes it a lot further. And then you throw in the extra authority that comes from distribution on the Big 3 authority sites, and you see we've got a powerful package. Now that multi-channel by itself is worth about $1,000, which I haven't reflected in the price down here. I didn't update it what it was without the multi-channel. So that's what we can also do. You can't just go and secure that with a low-cost tool like we've looked at with Searchy and Repurpose.io and Designer. This is into another space again in the authority publishing space. However, I am going to, because I've been in this market for so long, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in accumulating credits, basically, and they're sitting there waiting to be employed. So if anyone's interested in pursuing this side of things beyond what I'm doing, the referral rewards program, obviously that's only going to have a number of winners. It could have 8 winners. It could have a main prize, 3 consolation prizes, and if each of those 4 has a referrer, then each of those referrers will also win the same prize. So it could have up to 8 winners. But anyone outside of that, I'm trying to do what I can to help, particularly this year, and particularly in these challenging times, as I mentioned right on day one in my preliminary remarks. Then I'll be able to provide a number of these services at very favourable rates for conscious content creators. So please let me know beyond this series. But what that gives us the potential of what else is available to us beyond just the mechanics of content repurposing and posting on YouTube or whatever. And of course, there's still a number of other things that we can do. If we go back there we are, sorry. If we're here, I can also get interviews on Today, BuzzFeed, TED, radio network, effectively podcast episodes. I'm very happy to interview because as a media strategist, publishers are always looking for quality interviews, and I'm happy to help. So there's a whole range of things that are available to us, and I am really keen to get off the sideline and help people get their message out. All right, so I think just looking at the time, we'll wrap things up there for day 4. That brings us to the end of the formal curriculum, days 1 and 2. We looked at Searchy. Now days 3 and 4, we've looked at how we can take video, live streams or uploaded video and get it out. We've well and truly blown past the 50 versions of that original one piece of content. And I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to join me for bonus day 5 tomorrow. we'll be going through a similar process, fairly streamlined, fairly quick, because I'm not going to go as far into calories of everything. We've done that at some detail now, particularly yesterday on day 3. So this will now simply be looking at some of the differences we would need to do when we start with an audio podcast episode, this time going the other way, converting that video format, as well as a number of other things. Then the bonus day 6, I'm going to go through this again quite quickly, but we'll be looking at the Zoom sessions and see how we can automate the process, so we can take a single Zoom session and get that repurposed in more effective, productive ways. So if you'd like to join me for those, please do. If you haven't registered already for this and you just found your way to a replay, please take the opportunity to register so that I can let you know, I can communicate with you about additional resources that I'm planning to send out. And you'll simply need to go to 1 to 50 challenge. You won't see this page if you haven't registered. You'll see the introductory page, and you'll just press the little blue button. It's very clear, and that will register. I'll be able to communicate with you from that point forward, and that will also get you in the running if you'd like to refer anyone else into the referral rewards program, and you'll be up for those prizes. They're drawn Thursday the 18th. So I wish you luck if you do participate, if you'd be kind enough to refer some others. And I look forward to seeing you when we get together at this stage for the podcast maximizer session. I'll see you there.